Okay, we've got the quorum and it's the time. So, Mr. Roy Kwong, 4 minutes for you, please. Thank you, Chairman. We've touched on several directions in our discussions. The relationship between mainland laws and Hong Kong laws. I think the relationship is very close, especially this time we're talking about cyber crimes. My impression is that there was this national internet law on the PRC. If the server is in the mainland authorities can actually access these servers for information. So that's set down in the law, causing worries. We've got so many apps in Hong Kong, among Hong Kong people, WeChat, Taobao, and so on. So maybe the information of Hong Kong people has been collected and stored in the servers on the mainland. So if the mainland authorities can check on these servers, and there is the worry that there may be data leakage. So I would like to ask this question on the relationship between the mainland and Hong Kong. I will not repeat the controversies mentioned earlier, but then still I want to ask this question. Maybe the cyber crimes have to do with servers outside of Hong Kong. So how are you going to follow up on these cases? Would you seek assistance from the mainland government? How can you detect cross-boundary crimes? And also, apart from catching the online criminals, well, no one will object to this. Why are we having such a protracted debate here? Because the discussion has everything to do with politics. A lot of Hong Kong people don't trust the Hong Kong government, and we don't trust that you will just be dealing, say, with the tech crimes only, and then you will not infringing on Hong Kong people's privacy. This distrust has persisted for a number of years. Now, because once the system is set up, I'm worried that the system, say, will give rise to worries in relation to the access to computer with dishonest intent, and our freedom will be further curtailed. So I would like to focus on the discussion on the privacy of Hong Kong people, freedom of Hong Kong people. All these rights will not be infringed upon. Now, what is the relationship between the mainland authorities and the cyber crimes? And I hope that the Undersecretary will make sure that Hong Kong's people's freedom of speech and our privacy will be duly safeguarded. Several questions from Mr. Kwong. One has to do with server outside of Hong Kong, whether it's Asia, Europe, US, Australia. Only the LEAs in these jurisdictions have the authority to handle these cases. So this CSP is supposed to deal with these cases, and he may seek assistance from police authorities outside of Hong Kong to help deal with these cases. So we have these G7 high-tech crime subgroup and Interpol. They do have the networks for us to do so. And Mr. Kwong is referring to, say, politicizing this post. Well, the post is really to do concrete work, and the police do not have a political task or mission, and Hong Kong people's rights and freedoms are safeguarded by Hong Kong laws and the basic law. So we would strictly adhere to all these. Now, members, if you want to speak for the last round for 3 minutes, please press the button. I would like to maybe combine the time slots. Mr. Eddie Ju, I can give you 4 minutes. Fernando Zhang, Leung Kwok Hong. Okay, 4 minutes for you. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong first, 4 minutes. I will ask slowly. According to the Interception of Communications and Covert Surveillance Ordinance, when the police access to other people's computers, will they be monitored in doing that? If that is the case, in the past 3 years, how many warrants have been obtained by the police from the court to get access into people's computers? How many exercises or times have you done that? Because one warrant may cover several computers. Undersecretary. Now, for any activities under the ICSO, certain activities are governed by the provisions in the ordinance, and it also depends on whether the activities fall under the definition in that ordinance. So hang on, because I've got only 3 minutes. You may hack into other people's computers. Under the ICSO, you have to report to the commissioner, and you have to obtain a warrant. So my question for you is, how many reports have you made to the commissioner, and how many warrants have you applied for? Do you have the information on hand, Undersecretary? For the ICSO, we have given you figures, and these figures have to do with cases actually covered or governed under the ICSO. So I'm not in a position to give you any information outside the ambit of the ICSO. That may be a gray area here. When we formulated the ordinance, we haven't thought that you might hack into other people's computers. Well, the ICSO was enacted very rashly after my case in the court. So what are the cases covered? When you hack into people's computer, do you have to obtain a warrant? I've asked you so many times. If you don't answer me today, I will write in to demand an answer. You must give an answer to this electrical. This is a straightforward question. And if you have done that, how many warrants have you obtained? How many reports have you made to the commissioner? So if you say that for hacking of into people's computers, that's illegal, so there may be some gray area. Undersecretary. Well, any activity, whether it should be covered by the ICSO, will have to be looked at to see whether they meet the definitions of interception of communication and covert surveillance. So we'll have to look at whether the activities you refer to fall under the definitions of the ordinance.
For example, if you find something from me suspicious on the forums, you would hack into the computer. So that is abuse of power. If you hack into my account, well, you can do your surveillance on the forum and no one would say anything. You don't need to give me an answer. I will send you a letter if you are found to contravene. I will file a judicial review, Ms. Sari Lee. We have been talking about creating this post of CSP since June 2014. We have spent nearly 3 years and we are yet to create this post. But how have cybercrimes developed over the past 3 years? When you look at 2002, 272 technology crimes, and by 2015, there were 6,862, so the increase was 24 times. And by 2016, there were 4,537 cases. And in terms of the losses, and the figure increased from 60 million from 2010 to $1.8 billion in 2015. The thieves are all very intelligent nowadays, and they would resort to tech when they commit crimes. But the support to the police was inadequate, meaning that the post could not be created. Over the last 3 years, we are going way too slow. We have been discussing this at the Finance Committee for 16 hours. I think we need to proceed to the vote. There are some conspiracy theorists who said that the government is trying to crack down on dissent by creating this post, and that they are restricting freedom. But we cannot allow cybercrimes to proliferate. Some members said they do not trust the government. I hope that the members would not be too subjective in casting their vote. We must respect the facts. As legislators, this is what the public expects of us. Even if we support the creation of the post, it doesn't mean we would not follow up, because tech crimes develop rapidly. So at other occasions, we can follow up on how we can ask the police or CSP to improve their work. So I hope you can stop the filibustering. If you do not like the proposal, you can vote against it. Mr. Lichu, 4 minutes. Thank you. First, I want to address what Dr. Junius Ho and Dr. Elizabeth Quad said. We are indeed, we are not thinking too much. For the YouTube and media confessions by Guo and Gui, and he said there are hundreds of national security offices in China Resources Building. You said it was just a rumor or hearsay, so we won't dwell on that. And the national intelligence law has been drafted by the NPCSC, so I just want a straightforward answer from the government. This is not something they could explain through Article 18 of the Basic Law. Of course, we all know about the Basic Law, but as a representative of the Security Bureau of Hong Kong, will you find out more about the draft of the National Intelligence Law and whether it might be related to Hong Kong in some way? When WannaCry came to Hong Kong, we would ask questions. There were at least 4 media reports in Hong Kong. So this is a very simple request for the Security Bureau, but they failed to answer our question. Let me cite another example. In Article 95 of the Basic Law, it says that the Hong Kong SAR may maintain juridical relations with the judicial organs of other parts of the country, and they may render assistance to each other. So you should look at Article 95 as well. So again, Secretary, will you clarify with Beijing on behalf of Hong Kong people the connection between the national intelligence law in Hong Kong and whether we might be affected? Secretary, thank you. as a public officer in Hong Kong, we would try to find out more about developments in other countries as well as the mainland. But there are so many things happening around the world, and it's impossible for me to I'm just asking for a simple yes or no. You don't have to tell us whether you did it in the past. It's just a yes or no. Undersecretary, thank you. I think it's unnecessary because Article 18 of the Basic Law says national laws that shall be applied in Hong Kong would only be listed in Annex 3 to this law. And Article 18 also says that the NPCSC can amend Annex 3. So why didn't you try to find out whether the national intelligence law might be applied to Hong Kong via Annex 3 of the Basic Law? Dr. Fernando Chang, 4 minutes. Chairman, Ms. Eddie Chu's question is significant. How would the national intelligence law affect Hong Kong? We are considering this post of chief superintendent, and he is heading a new division or unit. Right now, we already have 46 chief superintendents together with this new CSP on cyber crimes. In the past, well, safeguarding cyber security is certainly important for the police. Well, the first issue we are looking at whether there's any whether there would be possible redundancy. I haven't received any satisfactory answer. We need to put in more resources, but Hong Kong has the largest police force in Asia in terms of population, so shouldn't we look at the cost effectiveness of this proposal? In terms of interception of communications, are we putting in enough safeguards? And would the police abuse their power when intercepting communications? I've not heard anything specific. The Undersecretary kept saying that the police would not breach the laws and that they would abide with the laws. So these are not specific answers. When gathering intelligence, whether on purpose or inadvertently, whether we will share the intelligence with the mainland or other countries, which would translate to crackdown on human rights and freedom of speech. The Undersecretary merely said that they have the power to decide. Of course, we all know that. But you need to tell us about your principles. You need to tell the public that you will defend basic values and you will protect Hong Kong people. You would only gather intelligence on criminals, and we will not share such intel unless necessary. So you need to tell us your principles. You haven't said anything about your principles. If the mainland suspects that I committed treason for my communication records, mobile phone records, and well, you can obtain all these at a click of a button. So are you going to share such information with the mainland? On what basis are you going to share such information with them? Undersecretary. Well, I have addressed your questions, Mr. Zhang. Maybe the answers were not what you're looking for, but I have already given you the facts. Anything done in Hong Kong justified. So let me give you some specific examples. In terms of tech crimes, according to Semantic, Hong Kong is ranked 23rd according to a 2015 report in terms of risk level. Chairman, you can leave that later when you explain your policy. Undersecretary, can you share with us your basic principles? We all know that the risk levels are high. In terms of the principles for sharing intel, the use of information is restricted to party A and B, and no third party would access the information. If I must have criminal intel on hand before I can share them. For the Hong Kong force, the intelligence must be related to Hong Kong crimes. I cannot share intel that is non-existent, and that's our collaboration with Interpol and between different law enforcement agencies. If you put the same question to other LEAs or units overseas, they are going to tell you the same thing. Dr. Chen Zhongtai, 3 minutes. The creation of this CSP is highly controversial because of a few reasons. First of all, Hong Kong ranks very high in terms of threat level. Most of that threat actually comes from mainland. The internet or cyber threat from the mainland makes up more than half the risks. And with the imminent national intelligence law, they can circumvene the judiciary, and they can enforce the law directly. And we will see repeats of the Causeway bookstore incident. First of all, we do not trust that the Hong Kong police can deal with cyber crimes, and we do not believe that they would be impartial when dealing with such crimes. And our biggest threat is from mainland China. You might have a different understanding, but I want to put to you some specific questions. The public is dissatisfied because they think that the police would abuse their power and jeopardize the rights of Hong Kong people under the names of certain crimes. Under the existing system, the CAPO and IPCC are our basic vehicles for monitoring the government, and we can monitor whether they are abusing power or abusing the use of violence, etc., or force. In terms of the creation of this post, if the public goes to the IPCC or CAPO, in terms of infringement of privacy, would the mechanism be different? On the abuse of police power, right now things might be physical, but on the internet, there's no way for us to monitor the police's powers. Are there relevant measures in lodging complaints against the police? Undersecretary. What Dr. Cheng is actually feasible. The principles are the same. When investigating a complaint about the police, if the complaint is related to internet behaviors, while the records on the internet are relatively more complete, and when needed, the CSTCB can render assistance in police complaints. So it's certainly feasible. If someone lodges a complaint against the CSTCB for abuse of power during enforcement, he said the CSTCB can offer assistance, but that's a case of them investigating themselves. I think the system does not allow monitoring of police power, so would there be relevant adjustments or reforms? The CSTCB is not the only body in investigating tech crimes, and other divisions can also make investigations when needed. Mr. Michael Tian. Thank you. I asked why I only get 3 minutes, but Eddie Chu had 4. And the chairman said Eddie Chu has an unspent minute, so we can see that our chairman is very fair. Apparently, a number of members are concerned about sharing of intel and personal data with overseas agencies. The Undersecretary said you would only take action after you receive criminal intel. And if country A approaches you, you have to see whether you have received criminal intel on whether a person has breached the Hong Kong laws before you act. In any case, country C or D would not be involved. So, would you have to suspect that the Hong Kong laws have been breached before you take action? For example, if someone committed murder in the UK and some of that person's actions might have taken place in Hong Kong, then I would provide the criminal intel. And that's because such acts would be criminal in Hong Kong as well, and that forms a basis for sharing. If they want to investigate a criminal who has never showed up in Hong Kong, but if his or her other actions are involved with Hong Kong, for example, if the communications or financial actions take place in Hong Kong, or that if that person has partners in Hong Kong, then we would also share the intel.
If we consider there's a criminal element in Hong Kong, we will share that intelligence. So the principle is very clear. It's not you're giving whatever the other party wants. There has to be a reasonable belief that the suspect is involved in illegal activities in Hong Kong, and then you will follow up. So I think we want to be clear on this principle. So the last thing I want to ask is, are you only seeking one CSP post, and but can one person really deal with all these different cases? Time's up. Let's have a brief response. Well, in our organizational chart, with the addition of the CSP, they will still be working within the organization chart and managing the swing. We are lacking a senior manager in this organization. So in the long term, if we have further development, of course, we might have changes. If necessary, we might have to come back to LegCo. But in the foreseeable future, we feel the CSP will be working within the organization chart Some people will be conducting analysis. Some people will collect intelligence. Some people will deal with infrastructure. Some people will deal with training and so on. So this is our division of labor. Miss Claudia Mo. I haven't used my 1 minute. You weren't on the list just now. You have a list? Yes, I do. If I'll allow you to overrun a little bit. Well, just now, the Undersecretary said Article 18 of Basic Law said that national laws will not be applied in Hong Kong. We know, unless there's a war and Hong Kong is out of control and so on. But now, under one country, two system, we are highly autonomous, except for national defense and diplomacy. So, I'm now asking, let's say I'm an investigator from the mainland. I come to Hong Kong to collect intelligence, and I am operating under the name of national interest, and I suspect the person of subversion, or they are communicating with other sovereignties. And you're saying that if through surveillance and interception we have been investigating, well, you might have a whole basket of strawberries. Will you be sharing that rather than just one orange? And let's say I want to come to Hong Kong to investigate, but it's not convenient. I shouldn't enforce the law on mainland. National security agent should not enforce Chinese laws in Hong Kong. So can I circumvent surveillance and intervention and interception? And could the Chinese national security agent ask the Hong Kong police to investigate on their behalf and find this basket of strawberries and orange? Well, Miss Claudia Mo's question is actually a repetition of my previous question and answers. Well, the principle that will be applied is that the Hong Kong law enforcement agencies are the only authorities, and when we exercise Hong Kong laws, we have the discretion, and it's based on whether the person has convened criminal laws, or whether in international, whether the suspect has contravened international laws, and is it whether it's a international crime that we need to target. So we've spelt out what should come under Article 18, and Article 18 states it very clearly that it can only take effect in Annex 3 of Article 18. Then Hong Kong will definitely comply with the letter of the law. Now, there are the pro-establishment legislators who say that whether we support this establishment of this post is a matter of trust. Well, it's not a matter of trust. It's whether the public have trust. The public have a lot of queries about the crimes that the Cybersecurity and Technology Crime Bureau investigate. They will also be investigating private and personal affairs, and might infringe on their rights. So you say, well, this Cybersecurity and Technology Crime Bureau will exist even without the creation of this post. But and we're also worried that we are going to be expanding police powers, and I'm not sure. Would it be the security panel or the special FC? The questions we ask, the police will just answer. They don't have these statistics, and they can be very blunt. And it's only the Undersecretary who has been so patient in answering our questions. We're not trying to create obstacles. We are asking for statistics so that the public, because the public have a right to know, we are asking for statistics on the dishonest use of a computer. We're not trying to make your life difficult? We've been asking for years, and because we haven't received an answer. And the Undersecretary had promised that he will try to provide statistics within this year. Well, regarding your investigation details, that can't be disclosed. But how many prosecution cases do we have for underskirt photography? I don't think this is a secret. It should be a secret. We need the public to know, and the public are worried. Will we have cyber sting operations? What has been downloaded? What has been watched? The police won't answer that in detail. I want to ask. A lot of colleagues have mentioned that the national intelligence law will allow them to conduct intelligence work outside mainland borders. Well, if it's not legal work, the Hong Kong police cannot cooperate. When the Hong Kong individuals are aware of that and wish to report that, can we use dishonest use of computers? Can we prevent national security agents from doing investigation work and prosecute them with the dishonest use of computers? Well, everybody is equal in front of the law. They have to comply with Hong Kong laws, and we have to determine it case by case. Well, if we don't have for any other questions, we'll have to deal with our 37As. We have 8 37As. We now have. Well, do we have to call for a division bell? Let's ring it for 5 minutes.
請講。
According to FC Rule 37, FC Rules of Procedure Rule 37A, the Fund Application FCR 2017-18-3 calls for creation of posts of CSP. The Chief Superintendent Police Officer will be in charge of the Cybersecurity and Technology Crime Bureau. He will be dealing with computer attacks, but the public are also concerned that a lot of national security agents will be using computers, and they will be privy to a lot of individual information. So for national security agents, can they be prosecuted? This committee asks that after the creation of the post, any police officer, all people who contravene this law, including the mainland officials who break the law, should be prosecuted if they break these laws.
呢條啫。你讀快啲先。提一提大家呢，我哋而家
We now have 22 37As, and I will not receive any new 37As.
我提一提大家呢，我哋即將
I'd like to remind you that we are about to vote on Mr. Tan Ji-chun's 37A motion.
All right，現在開始表決。
Let's vote now. We'll stop voting and display the results. 14 for, 27 against, 0 abstentions. It is negatived. Mr. Tan Ji-chun, please read your second. You've missed out a step. Chairman, according to Rule 47, a rule of procedure, we'd like to call the division bell change from 5 minutes to 1 minute. Mr. Oh Tong-sing, according to ROP 47, Rule 47, where the division bell time will be changed from 5 minutes to 1 minute. Any speech? No? Then we'll put it to the vote. Mr. James To? Chairman, how many minutes do I have? 3 minutes. I deliberately do not wish to change it to 1 minute. The reason, we can continue this debate and allow this item so that this item cannot be voted on today. The reason being, I have some 37 A's, and one point is, even though the government has not been willing to provide information on search warrants, I think this is ridiculous. This is not whether we're about, it's not just about a post of a CSP. The government thinks that these questions need not be made, this information need not be made available to the public, and LegCo does not need a monitoring of this situation through statistics and other means. This sort of attitude this gives us the possibility of invasion of privacy, a limitation of freedoms and communication, and the provision of simple statistics for LegCo's scrutiny. If that is not allowed, or not, if they are not willing to cooperate, then the only inference I have is that the government, of course, they are trying to detect fraud, telephone fraud, but at the same time, my inference is that they must have some dirty secrets in their closet. They feel that these statistics, let's say our scrutiny that we did over a year ago, they don't want to disclose that. They feel it would shock the public. They don't want to disclose the internet information. They don't want to further follow up. They don't want us to deliberate whether these are appropriate measures. They might have coerced or forced internet service providers. They might threaten to confiscate their servers and such. They don't want us to investigate. So, Chairman, if that is the case, I object to the 1 minute division bell. I don't want them to endorse this item, at least for today. We need further negotiation, and they have to provide more information. Ms. Dr. Fernando Zhang? Chairman? Regarding the 5 minute division bell to 1 minute, I object as a sign of protest. I respect Mr. James Toe, he's been in the security panel for many years, and he has been communicating with the security officials. He has been maintaining a very reasonable relationship. He has exercised a reasonable monitoring of their work. And my questions in the last few rounds has been very clear. The police, their interception and surveillance, they've been abusing their power, and the exchange of information of intelligence with mainland, is it appropriate, reasonable? And I still haven't received a satisfactory answer. The post itself, I support the functions of the post, but regarding the opacity of the police and the surveillance, they rely on interception and surveillance, and they have to rely on the commissioner. The commissioner's annual report, it indicates there are a lot of problems, and the interception and surveillance ordinance, the police can use hacker software to patrol, to intercept information. So how do we safeguard the public's interest? Let's take a look at the U.S. Their intelligence network. Mr. Fernando Jung, please return to why you think 5 minutes is not a division bell is not an appropriate time.
I've never heard that you can protest. Well, I'm objecting to it as a form of protest, and I'm explaining why I'm protesting against it. So please come back to this discussion. Now, this should not be a tool for your protest. Please understand that. I am just explaining the objective of my protest. Please finish. Let Dr. Zhang finish first before you speak. Dr. Zhang, please. Do you want to answer this question on the point of order first? Well, please finish first. I have to explain my position. Of course, we would say respect, say the need for a intelligence collection system, but at the same time, we saw what happened to Edward Snowden. The U.S. government could freely do surveillance on their citizens. And if you are to create this post, are we giving them extra power? So we are obliged to seek clarification. If we don't get the answer we want, we really have to go on asking until we get the answer. That's all right. But we are now discussing whether we should change the division ringing bell, the timing of the division ringing bell from 5 minutes to 1 minute. The chairman is obliged to follow the FC procedure. And I hope that you could understand my position, because this is what I have to do. Mr. James Cho, what point of order? Chairman. Well, fellow members are free to express what they want in protest against changing the time from 5 minutes to 1 minute. So can you comment on the substance of the explanation? Well, if members are digressing, then I have to ask him to go back to the discussion subject. It's not relevant. It's not. I don't think it's a point of order. No. You can't comment on my substance. You can't say it's reasonable or unreasonable. I'm not going to argue with you. Mr. James Tell, you are a veteran member and you are respected by all, so I'm not going to argue with you. The Secretariat has reminded me in relation to 41, the members should speak to the subject and should not be speaking on something else. So if you use this as a tool for filibustering, I'm very disappointed. Please don't waste our time. We've been discussing this since 2014, and we are in deep trouble when it comes to our internet security. So there's no need for us to discuss this again in the next meeting. We're talking about cutting 5 minutes to 1 minute. Well, he's protesting against this proposal, and he can explain why he's protesting against it. Well, if it's relevant, then I can let you speak. But if it's not relevant, I can't allow for it. I've heard your views clearly, Mr. Eddie Chu. 3 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. You see how many people have pressed a button? Just a couple of us. So please don't be so emotional. Well, I will explain to you afterwards, after you've spoken. If you are digressing, I have to pull you back. I have submitted 3 37As. And these show that there are 3 aspects in this discussion. And these are all serious matters. And I think members should be given 5 minutes to decide on how they will vote on my 3 37As. I think that's necessary. The first aspect is on a matter covered today. On the 16th of May, the draft of the National Intelligence Law was promulgated. So I think we have not had enough discussion on this. The Undersecretary seems to be sort of laid back, and it has nothing to do with the Security Bureau. As long as they've got Article 18 of their basic law, then that's fine. No, that cannot be the case. For this draft National Intelligence Law, well, it mentions about collecting intelligence outside the borders, and Hong Kong falls within that area or category. So how has it got to do with 5 minutes versus 1 minute? And, well, I've explained myself clearly. Do you think only toilet breaks are irrelevant, or what? So you should not be asking these questions. I have the duty to make sure that you come back to this subject. I'm not arguing with you. I'm talking about my own 37As, and we need 5 minutes and not 1 minute for members to consider whether these should be supported. How come is digression? Can I come back to what I'm going to say? The second aspect is on interception of communications and surveillance ordinance. It is said that it protects adequately people's rights, but is it applicable to, say, WhatsApps and Instagrams and so on? And the Undersecretary has not given us any figures on whether they have intercepted the WhatsApp and the Instagrams. So if you don't want to give us the figures, then that means that you have circumvented the ordinance and hacked directly into the computers, and that goes against Article 30 of the Basic Law, giving protection to Hong Kong people on their freedom of communication. Mr. Raymond Chan. Well, please calm down, Chairman. Today, I didn't mean to filibuster, and these 3 minutes of mine are not really filibustering. I will be frank about it if I'm really doing that. And, well, if there is no member objecting to a 5 minute changing to 1 minute, then that's it. I have another function to celebrate, a function to attend to celebrate the legalization of the same-sex marriage in Taiwan. Now I'm going to speak on this this proposal of changing 5 minutes to 1 minute. He said that he is going to protest against it. So why do I support his stance? He hoped that through the debate, that no voting should be conducted today. What he meant was, or that Mr. James To is a veteran lawmaker who's been following up on security issues all along. And in the past, when we had the big debate on the budget, he would always move amendments to cut the expenditure on the police. He was trying to give pressure to the security Bureau, and the administration has not been cooperative in its answers and giving out figures. And Mr. To said that if we don't conduct the voting today, then in the next week, the Undersecretary may go back and try to find answers to questions they have not answered yesterday. At least they should undertake to do so. The Democratic Party would not like to filibustering, but he would risk being accused of filibustering and then try to object to the reduction, the changing the 5 minute to 1 minute. He's definitely concerned about security issues in Hong Kong and cybersecurity. And the administration has been saying all along that, we will act in accordance with the law. Please have trust in us. My question was simple. Say if the mainland LEAs come to Hong Kong to enforce the law, are they breaking the law? Then he said that it depends on the individual cases. My 37A is this. Now, even if it is the central authorities, mainland authorities, and if they are breaking the law, then you have to catch them. But he isn't answering that, so that's why we don't support your creation of the post. Now, I would like to remind members that we have to conduct meetings effectively, efficiently, and impartially. And many members have actually declined appointments so that they can stay here and vote on the proposal. And they would like very much to vote on this item. So we shouldn't, for this objection from a couple of members, not conduct the vote today and discharge our constitutional duty. Ms. Claudia Mo, I am easy with changing 5 minutes to 1 minute, but then I am unhappy about your attitude towards Mr. James To. He's got a point. You sounded as if he was trying to disrupt the order deliberately. He has his own thoughts. And you said that this is not a tool for your protest. And lawmakers, if they think that this is a tool of protest, then it's not for you to ban it. So don't think you have all the say since you're the chairman. So that's number one. Number two, this afternoon, someone told me that they were watching the live broadcast of this debate. I have got to ask the secretary. The heading looks strange, and that is a heading of the recommendation of the ESC made at this meeting on the 21st of April. What kind of a recommendation is that? Let's be clearer about this heading. The recommendation, people don't understand what this recommendation is. So please tell us why you think it should not be 1 minute instead of 5 minutes. So some people haven't read through the papers, and they just came back and they would just press the yes button and not knowing what they were voting for. At least you should let them understand that we were creating this CSP post to work better on the cybersecurity. And I'm also very unhappy in your refutation to Mr. To. You said that the cybersecurity is in great trouble today. Wow, that sounds very weird, eerie to me. So as long as we've got one person, then we will be very happy. We will be very secure. So don't make exaggeration like that. You are the chairman, and you should not be actually making too many comments on other people's remarks. And the third point, we're not here really to debate. It should be a Q&A session, in fact, here. And somebody over there, I can't remember who, they said that if the Democratic members, you refer that this is a question of trust, and this will be turned into a tool for the government to oppress the dissidents. Now, on the question of trust, don't be too subjective. It's been 20 years since 1997, And if you are denying that there is this problem of confidence and trust, then you have all to say. And Mr. Lang Kwok-hong, I have some other engagements as well. I was supposed to be watching a match, but I don't think I can go now. Mr. Lucas has left. That's all right. Oh, he's coming back. Well, he can't watch the match either. Anyway, other pro-establishment members, don't get too angry. We are very concerned, and we're asking so many questions because we want to get more information. All along, I don't think it should be a 1 minute. And of course, now it's being raised by Mr. To. Of course, I will go all out for supporting him. Now, this is an important issue, and some people ask, how much longer can you drag this on? I think it's a matter of attitude. If you think 1 minute is better, well, no, I don't think so. I think 5 minutes are better. Well, consider this carefully. If we work too fast, then it's not going to be okay. Mr. Holden Chow should understand this very well, because there can easily be mistakes. Chairman, don't scold us all the time. Do you think we are very happy sitting here? The Under-Secretary looks like he's about to die. It's not that I don't trust the civil servants or the secretaries. I think it might go beyond our control. Undersecretary, you will be the secretary for the next term. If you can't answer our questions, we'll continue asking. Maybe you say that I'm speaking nonsense, long hair, and you don't get my questions. Well, give me the figures. Of course, you can tell me to look at the report of the commissioner. There have been the number of cases set out there, but then the problem is there is no detailed breakdown of the cases, what the cases are. I've asked you many times. If you hack into people's computers, how many search warrants have you obtained for doing that? You weren't able to answer me. Anyway, fine. Even if you didn't give me the answer, we can still endorse this paper. Well, we'll just do our best. Don't want to speak anymore. No, nothing from me further. Chairman. So why I'm so concerned? Because we've got some 60 proposals from the ESC and PwC yet to be discussed, and we've adding in so many meetings in June, and very probably we cannot deal with many of them. Well, we've been approving a record low number of proposals, and the construction work is to be affected. Let's make the best use of our time. Well, after the meeting, you can pursue after the government further. I think it's time that we should take the vote, but then you are standing in the way, and then you are setting out the reasons for your objection. It's very difficult for me as a chairman to accept that kind of behavior. Mr. Roy Kwong, first of all, I have to support to Mr. To. Support Mr. To's proposal. Now, in the absence of information which can allay people's worries, shouldn't we be rushing through this, changing the 5 minute rule to 1 minute? And that is the division bell should be rung for 1 minute instead of 5 minutes. I think that's this rule came with good intention when it was first drawn up, and maybe the lawmakers had a very hard time in handling the issues, and they are very tired. So, is there a better way to help them? So that's why we wrote this rule into this FC procedure. When it was first drawn up, no one could have imagined that we should use this rule, and as a way of protest, we were not convinced. This has everything to do with freedom of the internet, people's privacy, etc. So we want to tell the Undersecretary here. Now we have this CSB, this cyber police officer coming up. You may be well-intentioned now, but what about 10 years and 20 years later? What will happen? It's not that we don't trust you. We just don't trust the system. If we don't gatekeep the freedom of speech today, then later in the future, we will be losing out. And maybe some years later, you will be, seeing problems out of this. And the pro-establishment members said that we have this conspiracy theory. And we understand what's happened in the past in Hong Kong, and our duty is that there will not be a Pandora's box scenario coming up. You may be well-intentioned now, but then 10, 20 years later, this will be twisted. The good intention will be gone. Just like this rule, 5 minutes versus 1 minute, that was drawn up way back. And people at that time haven't imagined that there should be a very long debate that we are seeing today. And the same logic goes for the creation of this post. What we're worried is about Hong Kong people's freedom of speech, whether it will be further constrained by the creation of this post. Mr. Lang Yu-chung, Chairman, you said that we should not use this way to express our objection, and if we have different views, we should talk privately to the government officers to try to resolve the issues.
喺會上高就提出意見呢。
We have been offering our views, and hopefully we hope that the government would accept them. But if the government does not comply within LegCo, it's hard to imagine that they will take our comments on board outside of LegCo. So that's why we are using this channel to express our dissatisfaction. What I just said does not serve to constitute my justification for against shortening the division bell from 5 minutes to 1. I hope members can really pay attention to the contents of the items they are voting on. We should not reject things for the sake of it. And this is something we have been accused of, and we hope that the pro-establishment camp doesn't do the same. Please pay attention to the motions moved under Rule 37A. I will just refer to one motion moved by Mr. Ray Chan. According to Rule 37A of the SC procedure, and I refer to the creation of the Chief Superintendent of Police posts, but we urge the CSTCB to request the CSP to do certain things, and the CSTCB should fall under the Crime and Security Bureau. So as you can see, this is not against creating this new post. It only serves to improve the arrangement. So this is certainly worth debating. But given the current rules, no discussion or debate is allowed. You can only vote for or against it. This is really a pity. The government should think about these motions. However, we are under our norms, we would first seek agreement before we decide whether or not to discuss these motions. But please think about the grounds for making such for members who make the amendments. I will now put the item to a vote. According to Rule 47A of the SC procedure, the motion is to shorten the division bell from 5 minutes to 1. a division is claimed, the bell will be rung for 5 minutes.
提一提大家咧，我哋即將表決咧係咪？
I'd like to remind members that we are voting on whether to shorten the division bell from 5 minutes to 1.
現在開始表決。
Voting begins. Voting is closed.
得未啊 ？OK， 唔該晒。現在停止。
Thank you. The voting is closed. The results are shown. 27 for, 14 against, 0 abstention. The proposal is carried. Next motion, please, Mr. Ray Chan. The bell will be rung for 1 minute.
按照財務委員會會議程序
According to Rule 37A of the FC procedure, I move that since a new chief superintendent post is suggested by FCR 2017 to 18-3 to lead the Cybersecurity and Technology Crime Bureau, and the scope of work includes monitoring the cyber threats faced by infrastructure computer systems, but earlier a computer system at the site of the Hong Kong Link Road of Tonga Drive Macau Bridge was hacked, and we request that after the creation of this CSP post, the CSTCB must explain the defense work against cyber threats among key infrastructure computer systems in Hong Kong. Voting begins. We are dealing with Rule 37A. Voting is closed. The results are displayed. 13 for, 25 against, 0 abstention. The item is vetoed. Next item, please. According to Rule 37A, for the proposed Chief Superintendent post in FCR 2017 to 18-3, according to paragraph 1 of the paper, the CSP would be responsible for the CSTCB. Some members of the public are cited that since prosecutions have been made on netizens based on dishonest use of computer, then the police would be creating white terror. We request that after establishing this post, the CSTCB must provide statistics of past prosecutions on dishonest use of computer and the number of prosecutions so that the public can understand the prosecution situation by the CSTCB on dishonest use of computers. Voting begins. Voting is closed. The results are displayed. 14 for, 27 against, 0 abstention. The item is vetoed. Next item, please. According to Rule 37A of the FC procedure, I move that, according to the government's paper, the CSTCB belongs to the crime wing, but the public feels that this could not reflect the importance of the relevant cybersecurity work. So before the new CSP comes on board, the administration should classify the CSTCB under another wing to reflect the importance of the work. Voting begins. Voting is closed. The results are displayed. 12 for, 27 against, 0 abstention. The item is vetoed. Next, please. According to Rule 37A of the FC procedure, I move that for the proposed Chief Superintendent post suggested in FCR 2017 to 18-3, according to enclosure 1 of the paper, that CSP is responsible for the for maintaining the performance and discipline of the CSTCB, since a lot of members of the public are concerned that the police officers of the Bureau would abuse their powers in monitoring cyber activities of the public. We request that before the new CSP comes on board, a monitoring panel should be set up comprising a legislator, human rights representatives, in order to make sure that the relevant officers will not abuse their powers.
現在開始
Voting begins. Voting is closed. The results are shown. 13 for, 27 against the abstention. The item is vetoed. Next, please. According to Rule 37A of the FC procedure, I move that with the numerous cyber crimes nowadays, the public might not know the latest crime practices and situation. We request that after the CSP of the CSTCB comes on board, a social media account must be open for the Bureau in order to announce latest information of cyber crimes, and this would reinforce the safety awareness of the public. Voting begins. Voting is closed. The results are shown. 13 for, 27 against your abstention. The item is vetoed. Next item, please. According to Rule 37A of the FC procedure, I move that currently, if members of the public are affected by tech crimes, they can only call 999. But frontline police officers might not be professionally equipped to offer appropriate assistance and comments to the victims. We request that after the CSP of the CSTCB comes on board, he must set up a reporting and helpline on tech crimes and recruit professionals to deal with the complaints and cases. Voting begins. Voting is closed. The results are shown. 13 for, 27 against your abstention. The item is vetoed. Mr. Ray Chen, my final motion. Based on Rule 37A of the FC procedure, I move that, according to Enclosure 3 of the government's paper, most of the manpower allocation of the CSTCB lies within the tech crime unit and intelligence and support unit. Only very few manpower is allocated to the cybersecurity unit. A lack of manpower means that the police cannot deal with the increasing cyber crimes. We request that after the CSP comes on board, half the manpower of the technology, crime, and intelligence units should be transferred to the cybersecurity unit to enhance their enforcement capability. Voting begins. Voting is closed. The results are shown. 14 for, 26 against, 0 abstention. The item is vetoed. Ms. Claudia Mo. We request the government to withdraw the proposal to create one chief superintendent post and instead create a supernumerary post which lapses on the 31st of March 2019 in order to measure the cost effectiveness of that position before applying for a permanent funding for a permanent post at the Finance Committee. Voting begins. Voting is closed. The results are shown. 15 for, 26 against, 0 abstention. The item is vetoed. Next item, please. We request the government to review the performance and legitimacy of the CSTCB to see whether they comply with public interests before applying to the FC the funding for a new chief superintendent post to head the CSTCB.
We'll
now put it to the vote. We'll stop the vote and display results. 16 for, 26 against, 0 abstentions. It's negative. Next item. Because of the criminal ordinance Cap 161, the dishonest use of computers scope is very wide. It might affect the internet freedom of speech. This committee requests that the dishonest use of computer be amended before we consider creating the post of a CSP to lead the Cybersecurity and Technology Crime Bureau to avoid the government from using this legislation to use as a political tool for suppression. We'll now vote. We'll stop voting and display the results. 16 for, 26 against, 0 abstentions. We've negatived this item. Ms. Claudia Mo. This committee requests the government to withdraw the creating of a post of a CSP to lead the Cybersecurity and Technology Crime Bureau. We would like the new term of government to review the urgency and actual need for this post before they make a funding request to the Finance Committee. Let's cast votes. We'll stop voting and display results. 17 for, 27 against, and 0 abstentions. We've negatived this item. Mr. James Toh. The committee lacks information from the service provider in provision of user information, and the government and the police have been refusing to present the relevant information. This committee disagrees with creating the post of a CSP.
現在開始表決。
We'll cast votes now. We'll stop voting and display results. 17 for, 27 against, 0 abstentions. It's negatived. Mr. James Ho. The police have not confirmed any mechanism to ensure that they won't abuse powers, and they have not pledged that they would prevent intrusion into privacy. So this committee does not agree to creation of one CSP post. Yes, I've heard your comment. Mr. Eddie Chu, you have 3 motions. Let's vote. We'll stop voting and display the results. 18 for, 25 against, 0 abstentions. It's negatived. Mr. Eddie Chu. According to FC Rule 37A, I put forward the motion that the mainland Chinese national intelligence law has an impact on Hong Kong, and the one country, two systems is questioned again, and we urge the government that when they increase the resources to tackle cyber crime, they need to explain clearly all the verbal and written questions, and they need to answer all our queries. Let's start voting. We'll stop voting and display the results. 14 for, 26 against, 0 abstentions. We negative this item. Mr. Eddie Chu. According to FC ROP 37A, I put forward the motion that the police, service provider, and we need to monitor this information. The committee urges the government to provide more information and fine-tune the legislation. Let's put it to the vote. We'll stop voting and display results. 15 for, 27 against, 0 abstentions. We've negatived this item. Mr. Eddie Chu, your last motion. According to FCROP 37A, I put forward the motion that we urge the police regarding the dishonest use of computers statistics in the last 5 years. They give us a detailed breakdown and analysis, and also they need to provide us with this information, and the Law Reform Committee, they have to provide this information. Thank you.
Mm. 現在開始表決。
We'll put it to the vote. We'll stop voting and display results. 14 for, 28 against, 0 abstentions. We've negatived this item. Mr. Law Gun-chung has 537 A's, but he's not present. Mr. Fernando Jones submitted 3, but I declared that we will not receive them, but I will submit his opinions to the government. And if we have no questions, we'll now put FCR 2017-18 3 to the vote. Rule of procedure, Chairman. Rule of procedure, Chairman. I have 337 A's. You said you won't deal with them. Please ring the bell. We're now put forward a question on rule of procedure. We already... Please ring the bell. We've already dealt with this dozens of times. I told you, I announced that we would not receive 37 A's. There were no objections. My practice is that at a certain stage, the chairman will stop receiving 37 A's. We cannot keep on receiving them. No, you submit 3 and then another 3. I've given sufficient time to everybody. I received 3, and you need to understand that the chairman needs to be fair. I will also deal with, if I accept your 37 A's, I have to accept other people's. There has to be an end time, voting time. I have given everybody sufficient time. I've also extended the submission deadline. You have to understand that my sincere efforts. I'll remind you that we are now putting to the vote the original item, FCR 2017. Let's put it to the vote. We'll now stop voting and display results. 26 for, 16 against, 0 abstentions. This has been endorsed, so we'll now enter the second item. What rule of procedure question do you have? Let's invite the officials in first. What rule of procedure question do you have? Our rules of procedure says that we don't need to announce 37 A's. Even though you said that you announced a deadline, 377 A's, 3 minutes, you don't want to deal. It's not 3 or 5 or 10 37 A's. I've already drawn the line. Mr. Paul J., I want to clarify the minutes record. Please, the Secretary, please amend that. Let's invite the officials. The item is to endorse the PWSC suggestion on the 16th of March 2017, that is PWSC 2016-1739, regarding Area 54 Public Rental Housing Development Infrastructure, item 781CL, to move it to a category A, and we foresee that it will come at an estimated cost of $284.8 million. And on the 16th of March 27 PWSC meeting, we had discussed this for some 55 minutes, and the government has provided a paper. I also need to declare that I'm an independent executive director of Bank of East Asia. We have Mr. Leung Tak-yan and his team. If you want to speak on this item, please press the button. Well, regarding you said that you would not accept 37As, and you said there were no objections, and therefore you could override the ROP, giving legislators the power to not announce 37A. All of the so-called objection. How did you confirm that? Well, Mr. Ichi, we've already endorsed the previous item. Now, if you have any questions, you can deal with that. We can deal with that after the meeting. Well, you put us to the vote. You already used this trick before, and you said we'll change the division bell from 5 minutes to 1 minute, and now I want to come back to the 37A because we feel it's not fair. We are seated in our position and in our seat, and well, you can review the tape. We've made it very clear, and I said that I would not accept any 37As. That has been a standing practice. I cannot keep on receiving 37As. Now, we have already dealt with the previous item. Let Mr. Michael Tien. Well, I've been like this. Mr. Michael Tien? I already made a ruling and I concluded the item. Please don't Mr. Michael Tien. I'll start. We are now talking about Dongchong Area 54 infrastructure for public works. Mr. Fernando Chung, what ROP do you have? Well, today's FC, aside from the break in the middle, the only time I've left was for to the washroom. I don't know whether you made the announcement then. I didn't hear it. But you've made your ruling, and I want to have it on record that I object. Your record is against the ROP. I have 3 37As. You didn't accept one of them. That is totally unreasonable. Mr. Leung Kok-hong, it's totally unreasonable. Well, you announced that you would not receive 37As. It wasn't according to rule of procedure. Before you put the item to the vote, you have to accept the 37As. You made an advance warning. You could have done it right at the beginning. You can say that you have to submit the 37As, otherwise we won't accept them. I want it on record. I think that person is a moron. Okay. I had explained it numerous times, and I'll repeat once more. 37A is part of the FC procedure. The chairman of FC should be able to regulate the submission of these motions, and in order to have the meeting conducted in an orderly manner, we need to refer to 37A rules, and we can set a number of conditions, and you can review the tape. If you don't agree with me, you can write me a letter, and please do not stall our proceedings and stop Mr. Michael Tien from his question. I am referring to the Dongchong item. Chairman, just now you said that you are independent executive director of Bank of East Asia. I want to ask this Dongchong HOS whether it's financing or mortgaging. Does that mean Bank of East Asia cannot participate? If BEA can participate, are you the suitable person to chair this meeting? Well, I'm an independent executive director, and I just have to monitor the board of directors, and I have to monitor the directors and minority shareholders that their proceedings are fair. I'm not doing business with them. I don't see any direct or indirect. Well, the BEA is not a charity. I don't see the relevance. and when members declare interest, we can determine whether it's direct or indirect. I have declared my interest, and I already said that I don't have direct or indirect pecuniary interest. Michael Tien, regarding Area 54, Dongchong, the funding application, I support that. But it's unfortunate that we had to postpone it till now. As you all know, Area 54 will have a PRH 3,300 units that can accommodate some 10,000 people, and there are also 2 new construction sites amounting to some 4,000 units. So when you add them all up, in the future, there will be some extra 20,000 people. So, Director, I think you would be very familiar with this. The infrastructure we're talking about is this plot here, and this plot is infested with mosquitoes, and it obstructs the path. There's not even a bus stop there, and this item, after application for funding, it will only be done by 2021 at the earliest. And then what are we going to do in the interim? Well, last year, in November, I met with CEDD and the highways, and I visited the site, and we hope that in this middle we'd create a interim path that leads to the road, such that the buses, the downtown buses, can have a stop there. So, Director, today you can see in the morning the tenants in these housing estates, they have to take a pedestrian bridge to across the road, and if there's buses to Dongchong and the MTR and downtown.
But on the return trip, when the vehicles are going through the other side of the carriage, there is no stop, so the vehicles can't stop there. So they have to go all the round another residential development and then walk back to their homes for 10 or so minutes. So if there is a temporary access, then that will be good. And the Transport Department has also agreed to building a bus stop there, so people can use that bus stop and then walk back to their homes. Now, for this temporary access, we've been talking about this since last November. I know that works have commenced, and I don't know the progress of the works. So can you tell me and update me on the situation? How much longer will it take to finish the works? And you have to coordinate with the TD as to when the bus stop can be put there. So what is the overall timetable, Director, please? Mr. Leung, on this temporary bus stop, together with the Lands Department and Transport Department and other government departments, we have studied into this, and we think that it can be implemented. The works started in early May. You started it in early May, and we expect that it can be completed around August. So for the eastbound buses, they can use this bus stop and provide convenience to residents nearby. All right. And this temporary access will be completed in August. And what about the TD? When will they start their works? Can they start widening the road now and provide, say, for a lay-by for the bus to stop, or what? Apart from the bus stop, there are some other temporary pedestrian walkways as well. So the works on the bus stop and the footpath will be taken forward at the same time. So you are confident that by the end of August, the bus stop can be commissioned? Yes, we have confidence in having the bus stop and the pedestrian walkway there in August. Mr. Ronik Chen, I support building PRH to address the housing needs of the grassroots. Now, going by this paper, 2016-1739, the paper says that you planned to commence the construction works in mid-2017, which will be completed in mid-2020. It's already the end of May now. If everything goes smoothly, I believe that the works can only be awarded, say, in June. So going by the latest progress, you have to postpone the commencement time and adjust the completion date. And will it affect the completion date for the PRH housing, which is supposed to be completed in 2021-12? And also in the supplementary paper, you provided some cost comparisons about 3 PRH units: Chonga Road project in Taipo and this Tongchong area 54 and Zhangguan O area 65C2. The consultant cost, differs a lot among the 3 projects. Now, consultant cost divided by the provision for price adjustment, and I've come up with a ratio. Chonga Road is 1.61 million, is 0.72%. Area 54, $3.2 million. Ratio is 1.32%. And Zhangguan, no consultancy fee. Is it because the housing authority is helping you out, or what? I know that the government has been saying that there have been inadequate internal resources. As a result, consultants have to be appointed. That's I can understand. But how come that there is such a big difference among the 3 projects? Thank you, Chairman. Who to take that question? Mr. Lang. I will respond to Mr. Chan's question one by one. First, about the timetable. For the infrastructure works projects, works will commence in mid-2017. And CEDD, based on the latest situation, will say push back the commencement works to the end of this year, which they will try to catch up with the progress, and the works are expected to be completed by the end of 2020. And for PRH housing estates, they will be completed in 2021 and 2022. So I think the works can tie in with each other in terms of timing, so no need for worry. Second question about consultants' fees. You mentioned 3 projects. The first project is Taipo project. The CEDD would undertake part of the work, and some part of it has been entrusted to the HA. So in terms of the consultants' fees, compared to the Tongchong project, that differs. For the Tongchong project, all the works will be handled by the CEDD, so hence the difference. With regard to the third project, Zhangguan 65C2, the entire project will be entrusted to the HA, so there is no consultancy fee involved. Thank you, Chairman. Next one, Dr. Fernando Zhang, 5 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. I don't have enough time. Maybe I'll go beyond the end of the meeting time. Is that all right? Yes, I have something to say. You have 4 minutes. Yes, please begin. We support this project in principle, but these are not really for the grassroots. This is an HOS project. The grassroots live in PRH. We have several concerns on this project. I'd like to ask the administration. This is a relatively small project, 3,300 units with a population of 10,000. But for the Tongchong as a whole, the development project is massive in size. There will be 130 hectares of land to be reclaimed, and there will be at least an additional 120,000 people. So that will be doubled. The population in Tongchong will be doubled. So whether it's a Tongchong Area 54 or 53A or 56, and also for other reclamation projects, and also the overall development of Hong Kong, of Tongchong, has the administration made an assessment on the need of the population for, say, elderly homes, childcare centers, etc. For the RCHEs, the intake rate is around 6 to 7%. Let's assume that there is not such a high proportion of people aged over 65 living in this RCHE. Have you made plans for adequate RCHEs to be provided there? I'm just citing this example for elderly homes. Have these been included in your plan? Yes, Dr. Financial Zhang, you are right. Well, we're almost close to the end of the meeting. Is there anyone who wants to ask the questions? Maybe I would like to add in 15 minutes. No, that can't be done. All right. Now, after Dr. Zhang is finished, then we'll adjourn the meeting. So please answer Dr. Zhang's question. Thank you, Chairman. The Development Bureau and the Planning Department, in relation to the reclaimed land in Tongchong, will make relevant planning in relation to land uses and so on. The details will be known after we have better knowledge of the land uses planned there. That's very strange. You said that in this project there will be 3,300 flats for a population of 10,000 people. So you should be able to project the needs, right? If you don't reserve enough land to meet with the needs that I mentioned, or, well, I won't repeat myself, and whether it's the reclaimed land or the developed land, the plots there, well, if you haven't made the relevant planning, how can we be sure that there is enough space to provide for such facilities? Now, on PRH development, in the vicinity of the area, there is Area 54 and Area 56. The Housing Department in this planning stage has consulted the relevant government departments. So in these two development areas, there will be sufficient or appropriate welfare facilities. For example, in Area 56, there will be an RCHE, an integrated activity center, and also RCHD for severely disabled people, and also a sort of daycare center for the disabled. I don't have enough time. On the information on Area 54, 53A, and 56, can you give me a supplementary paper detailing all the number of places to be provided in these facilities? So time is up today. Thank you very much.